Greetings, salutations, and welcome to the Alan Osborne Show. I try not to make these, but they affect things that I'm doing in my life, and so I feel compelled to, not just for myself, but for the others who are suffering under the tyranny, and that's a good word, of these ass clowns that are in charge of Walton County these days. So Stan's up there. I love the name Tony Anderson in front of him because that's who the hell he's beholden to, and everybody knows it. So we'll get into that. But first, one thing I want to say about this past BCC meeting, and that's what this is about, because the county publishes a synopsis of the BCC meeting by Ron Kelly. They hired Ron because he has selective ability to report the truth. He just omits the stuff that's embarrassing, and that's his whole job for Walton County, is to make sure that they cover up the embarrassing part. That's some of the most important jobs there are. So what happened last week? Well, I had a couple things. Well, the first thing I want to do is congratulate Dan Curry. Now, I'm going to do a special show on this part of last week's meeting later on. And I want to thank Dan Curry. Dan Curry, I don't agree with everything you're doing, but as a commissioner, you're walking the walk and talking the talk. And any commissioner who can make Lloyd Blue come up to the podium and try to defend himself is doing the right thing, because we know what the history, because I'll go into that in our own show about the history of all that and that restaurant and everything else. Lloyd wants to talk about it, we're going to talk about it. So anyway, and we all know the connection. I'll get into that on that show. But good job, Dan Curry, for exposing stuff hard enough to make Lloyd stand up there and deal with it. It was awesome. And watch Tony. Boy, Tony, look, there wasn't emotion or anything, but Tony wanted to recognize Lloyd, because if you don't know the connection, it's funny on this show. Back in the day when Tony needed to be elected, it was Shipman and Lloyd who helped form the Small Business Association to gather up a bunch of dirty money from developers and other people who would profit from Tony's actions and put Tony in the seat. So here we are at a meeting, full circle. There's Tony. Watch him and watch his mannerisms compared to other things that go on in meetings. Watch Tony in that meeting when Lloyd or Shipman's up there. Watch him rub his head and pat his belly like some kind of weird stuff. Him and Danny get fits in this meeting. So let me go into what happened in this meeting. First, the good thing is we got rid of two tyrants at the same time at the BCC. Mac retired, and Bobby Hoke ain't the evil bailiff up there on a power trip. We didn't lose anything but a minion, but Danny put that cop on the contractor competency board that he has no business on as a reward for being such a stool pigeon all them years and treating all the citizens so bad. The hell with Bobby Hoke and the hell with Matt Carpenter. Good riddance to both of them. But wait, Mac's not really gone. Because let me tell you something that you probably don't know happened. On April 28, 2025, Matt Carpenter penned a letter, and it was delivered the day Mac retired, to Seaside, telling that it was his administrative opinion that all the cottage houses in Seaside qualified as short-term rentals. Now, if you don't know the backstory on that, there's people who've had short-term rentals for years in Walton County have been told by Mac that they can't rent them anymore because we don't have the infrastructure. Now wait again. We have either finished or under construction, somebody posted, in South Walton, 6,046 new rental units apartments coming on the market. Are you see this collapse coming? These affordable apartments? Where are they going to drive? We have so much stuff that if you think we got problems now, they all know it. We might as well not have a comp plan, because if you don't see this coming, if you don't see the collapse, the last time we had a collapse, all the realtors were buying up all the new homes, but they can't buy up the apartments. You know who'll be stuck with those? The banks, once they're flipped to other companies, and then that company goes bankrupt and turns it over to the bank. We'll just have a slum. I don't see the demand for that 6,000 some. Most of them are long-term rentals. Where the hell them kids gonna go to school? All the schools are busting. There ain't no ball fields. There ain't no beach. Y'all complain we ain't got no beach, and you're gonna add 6,000 families whose main recreation in that district would be the beach. We got an idiot as an administrator, and he's so conflicted he doesn't know whether to scratch his butt or wind his butt or scratch his watch. It's that confusing to stand. And to watch what happened in this meeting, because let's think about it. So I just want you guys to know that as Mac was walking out the door, he was delivering some letters, and I'll post those online about his determination of what was going on at Seaside. So we, other things that happened, okay. If you want to watch the thing with Lloyd Blue go down, I think that's 3 hours and 37 minutes into it. And he gets embarrassed because Dan Curry's doing his homework. Okay, and then we're going to get to the main thing that happened tonight. Okay, we got over all that, and what are they going to do about Mac? Now we got the state attorney's office worried about Chaz Galloway's emails being constitutionally violated, but we ain't worried about 700. What did Donna say? Well, let me get my notes out because I don't want to be misquoted. I think we had, trying to get to this, $700 and some $1,000, and $776,700, I believe, is just one of the figures that went uncollected. So let me give you the story in a synopsis. Commissioner Johns is going to sit up there and realize that something in her district that she didn't go to, and that Brad didn't go to, and that Danny admits that they approved 5 major developments in 21 minutes, 6 minutes, okay? So let me go over some of the highlights of that. What happened at this meeting is, and this is some of the stuff, is these fees went uncollected. And Clay goes on to give a dissertation, and I'm going to let the whole thing play out. So I'm telling you a lot of stuff up front, but you need to watch for these things. That these fees were supposed to be collected prior to it coming before the board. It didn't happen. It says that this system of a hybrid is not in the LDC and only applies to greenways. You know what the staff's answer is? Well, it's not prohibited. So that's the new rule in Walton County. If it doesn't say the activity is prohibited, then the staff can decide, well, maybe it's not. That's our LDC and comp plan. This comes out in the meeting on this part. Now, none of this makes Ron Kelly's report about the important things of this BCC meeting. So that didn't happen. Hybrid's not in there, as Donna points out. They moved the meeting. It didn't meet the requirement. Okay, so here's what they did. Planning and administration, and apparently somebody in legal, accepted a piece of property, and the plat's done. They say they can't suspend the plat, so they've already dedicated a public park. But it didn't meet the minimum requirements. And so they just wanted to pay the difference in this park that the staff accepted that didn't meet the requirements, and the staff can't explain it. But let me tell you some of Danny's main quotes. This is called the Casa Magnolia project, and surprise, surprise, it's a Shipman project in Mac. And Shipman stands up and cries foul at the end of it because Mac's not there. He's delivered the letter to Seaside, giving them permission to have short-term rentals forever in their cottage houses, because we know the traffic's not too much there. Just ask Roscoff. So I guess Bud and Alley's will have plenty of extra renters to come walk to it. Some kind of crap, some under-the-handed deal, while other people's have been shut down. Shipman gets to approach the board, just like Lloyd don't have a time limit, these special reasons. There's no motion, and Shipman starts walking up there before Donna even tells him he could talk. Danny's comment about what happened was, "What's a hybrid?" in quotes. Other comments he said, "Where is that in the code?" And he said, "I didn't know what I was voting for." He says, "I'm shocked." And he goes, "Really? You mean if it's not prohibited, then the staff thinks it's okay?" These are Danny's words. And we heard 5 items in 21 minutes. I mean, This should be investigated. Now, here's the topper of it all. Now, I don't have any proof of this, but what I understand is since this meeting, and we haven't had another BCC meeting, and remember Clay said they can't undo the plat, so to me, they gave us that park, and since it didn't meet the minimum, they still owe us the $776,000. But think about this. I was told by somebody, and I haven't confirmed this, but the developer was so worried that this was now coming to light that he voluntarily has paid the county. And my question is, when's the last time you saw, after Shipman said they didn't do anything wrong, if they didn't, why'd he run down there and pay that? You know why? Because they could not afford for this can of worms to be opened, and it still needs to be opened. What the heck happened? What in the cornbread hell is going on in Walton County that stuff like this keeps happening? And Clay tells them almost it's the exact same thing. And more importantly, you know what Clay tells the commissioners? If there's a grand jury into some of this stuff, they're going to look to hold you responsible too, not just the staff. Because a lot of stuff like in the things that I'm saying and the things that are happening is the commissioners are not taking action, and neither is this guy behind us, because he can't. He owes everybody favors, and he's violated so much, he's just conflicted. You know, he's got to go. If he can't make the staff follow the land development code, they feel comfortable cutting deals. Code enforcement feels comfortable, understand, of not even writing up the complaints. They're running poor Tabitha into the ground, just can't read a paragraph. These are simple things. Clay has told everybody that we are entitled to code enforcement. How? No matter what the litigation is, you're entitled to the enforcement of the law. The litigation does not stop your entitlement of that. So when's it going to happen? When's somebody going to call for an investigation that some people went into a back room and decided something that wasn't even in the code because, quote, it wasn't prohibited? Does that mean if you find something in America that you think you shouldn't be doing, but you can't find a law that says you shouldn't do it? Is that freestyle? Because apparently that's how this county's run. And there must be a culture within the county that has failed to be changed. And I say the culture falls upon the man right behind me, Tony Anderson's chump, because Tony's got him by the short hairs and can shake him anytime he wants. So can Lloyd. And I don't like that, because I have to stand underneath that tree and watch my money fall out of it. See how that Stan, you dragging your feet on this stuff with me. So I'm tired of waiting. So that's why I'm talking about it. I can't talk about the stuff that I'm not allowed to talk about, but I can talk about what Clay said. We're entitled to code enforcement. And that means all of us, all the citizens, we're entitled to it. And all those special rules you have for Lloyd and Shipman and other people stand up there, we see it. We see that. There ain't no motion. They're still come up there and talk. The timer don't go off. We see that. The rules depend on who you are. Because in Walton County, if you want all the rules enforced for you, then you have to be among the members who are elected or connected. And so with that, we're going to pause my dissertation on the failings. I think I've covered enough of that. Watch Danny and Tony's motions, and we're going to get into Donna bringing this up. I'm trying not to interrupt it because we know how bad the county audio is. So without further ado, let's go and hear from Donna.
Because I watched the meeting, and there was no mention of a hybrid use of our land development code in order to avoid paying, what it appears to me, avoid paying. Mr. Shipman, I have not called you to the podium yet, please. Okay. This is a piece of property. It's 10.69 acres. It goes from the Gulf of Mexico to Highway 98. And the plat fees that were required for that property were $776,272.76. There's also a $500 911 charge, which is standard for pretty much everybody, I believe. There was also a proportionate fair share contribution of $307,950.94. Now, on our staff reports, it states on all of our staff reports that this has to be paid prior to coming to the board. It says the recreation plat fee and the amount I just mentioned is required in compliance with policy R 2.1.9 of the comp plan and section 3.03.02 F1 of the LDC based on the current certified tax roll, which is subject to recalculation at the time of payment and is due prior to the Board of County Commissioner meeting for the plat. I have nothing that shows that any of those funds were paid. The only check that I have that we received was a little over $6,000. I believe it was in 2022 for the DO. In watching the meeting, there wasn't anything that said anything about contributing property in exchange for paying these fees. It's a single
Watch Danny and Tony's mannerisms.
The plat was for 34 single-family residents and 2 commercial out parcels. Everything in the documents as far as the staff report goes on to say that it's 34 single-family residential lots, 2,000 square feet of commercial use, 800 square feet of storage use, and 1,800 square foot clubhouse and pool amenity, and up to 10,000 square feet of future retail use and associated infrastructure. Well, there was no mention whatsoever of these fees not being paid, and there wasn't any mention, I don't believe, from Mr. Shipman. The only mention at all was about dedicating the property, the areas to the HOA, and when asked if the public would have any beach access, the response was no. And the only time that anything was brought up about the property being provided to the county was when Commissioner Anderson asked that question.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Did you say in there proportional fair share?
But that's, I know that's an old term, but that's what it said in there. But that's an old term.
We're not still charging.
No, we're not. It's a mobility fee.
They should have had a.
It's a
so how
mobility
much?
fee.
It would have been a DO well prior to the repeal of proportionate fair share.
So they would have had it.
I believe that is accurate. I'm not going back and look. That's why you would likely have seen it, because it looks like the development order on this goes back to December of 2023.
And the
other fees went uncollected, is what they're
Just to make
saying.
sure, they should have paid.
Look, Tony has summoned planning to come forward, and Shipman, he's getting nervous. He started rocking.
of plat fees.
The 300.
Somebody give him a gummy.
Easy ask. They
Right.
owed us.
Right.
959.4 is required to mitigate traffic concurrency deficiency was a special consideration as a plan.
Okay. Thank you, Madam.
That was in your staff report.
So we're missing about $1 million. Donna
So,
wants her 770.
According to everything I've seen,
Now watch this, as they find
the
out how it
hybrid
happened.
that apparently has never been used before would give you an opportunity to give the county 5% of the property. This property is 10.69 acres. 5% would be half an acre. The property that they're planning to give the county is less than half an acre. It should be more than half an acre. It doesn't fit the criteria. Plus, the payment was supposed to be made before it came to the board, and that was not done.
Doesn't meet the requirements, they did it
I was
anyway.
not there, Commissioner Drake was not there, Commissioner Anderson told me that he did not know that that was had happened, and had he known, he would not have voted for it. And so I'm asking that we recall that whole meeting, and we have that brought up to
When
the
did he
board.
tell you that, Don?
Because this is basically, in my opinion, it's just taking $776,000 that would have been District 4 plat fees for Parks and Recs, and where is it? Or am I missing something? Is the check on the way? But it's supposed to be paid before it goes to the board.
And
Can somebody explain what a hybrid?
Somebody from, I would ask somebody from our
Mr.
planning to go
Schoen.
first, since they're the ones who
Stephen Schoen,
administer
would you
it.
mind explaining that?
And just to be clear,
Here's
I
where
did
it
not
comes out.
sign
Danny doesn't
the
even know
plat
what he
when it was
voted for.
offered to me to do so because of this outcome. So this would be on the record.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, or evening, as it were. So the way that I understand it is that instead of allowing the applicant to either dedicate the entirety of what was required, which I believe is 0.51 acres, or paying the rec fee in its entirety, which, as you mentioned earlier, is $750,000.
What's required, not enough.
What the applicant and planning staff and some of our legal folks, I believe, came to an agreement or an understanding of is that the applicant would dedicate 0.43 acres and would pay the difference as their rec fee component. So the hybridization would be doing both.
Where is that in the code?
So
So they
it's not
decided
explicitly
not to follow
in the code.
the
It's not
requirement.
prohibited in the code.
Bottom line.
There is a component under our greenways section that does explicitly allow for the hybridization or the use of both rec fees and dedication.
Has it ever been used before?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am.
Does this fall under the greenways, Mr. Schoen?
This
He's
is
trying
not a
to cover
greenway
it up.
site, no.
So
In other
then,
words, no. It's not, I mean, in other words, it's not in the code explicitly for this situation.
It's not in the code allowing it outside of a greenway, but it's not prohibited outside of a greenway either.
That's. So,
It's either you're pregnant or you're kind of pregnant. I mean, you can't have both.
Sure.
I'm
So if it's not for,
I'm
No.
a little shocked. I mean, I'm a little concerned that I'm not going to the pregnant thing, but really, it's not prohibited, so it's okay? I mean, it's not prohibited that I get out there and take off like a flying jet off but that's not very smart.
No, sir.
I mean,
So, if I may just step back a little bit, I was hopeful that.
Danny became a
Mr. Carpenter
flying
would be able to
jet in
explain
his
things
analogy.
a little probably better than I have, because I wasn't
one,
part
Danny.
of those conversations. So,
I was hoping
I
Mr.
hear
Carpenter would
the,
explain what he
the
did.
sounds of conversation behind me. Maybe they have a better idea of what actually transpired and what was discussed there.
so,
well, let me just say also that Mr. Sunday was told the
He
day
said, "I don't know
before
what
this
happened."
meeting was taking place that it was going to be postponed until the next meeting. He in turn told other people that it was postponed. However, conversations took place the night before and the morning of that meeting to come up with this hybrid that's never been used before.
Again, ma'am, I'm not aware of the
I'm
the
aware of that.
timelines.
I'm aware of that. It's stated
Imagine
clearly in
that,
the
stand
meeting.
right in the middle of it,
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
just
So-
like the last grand jury.
I hate putting you on the spot because
Yes, sir.
I don't think, but nevertheless, you're the only victim I have.
Sir.
So why wasn't this hybrid stuff brought up in that meeting?
I
So
can
Danny
not-
is the victim.
I'll be the first to say, I'll take my share of
Victim of the
responsibility for
public,
this.
Danny.
Because we blew through that meeting in 21 minutes. And that was 5 items,
The
I think.
victim
it
is not
was.
the staff or you.
So 5 minutes of item ain't enough time to talk about these things. I understand that. I'll take my part of the blame for that. But somebody should have said something about this hybrid thing that now nobody's ever heard of. I mean,
You think?
you don't have to answer that, but there's something.
$750,000
can't.
a
I wasn't-
hybrid,
I
Danny.
wasn't here, I wasn't part of the conversations.
Yeah, you
Just
might
relayed
incriminate
my understanding
yourself.
of the situation.
Well, my ask is that somebody make a motion that we readjust that.
Hold on, there's some things I'm gonna add
Watch
into that.
Clay.
If there's any more board discussion,
He's
I'd
not
like
gonna
us to
let
make
that
sure
happen.
the board gets all their
Here comes
questions
Shipman.
answered to staff. And then I am gonna make some suggestions about how we may need to move forward. Reconsidering the plat approval itself is probably not what I'm gonna recommend. That's why I'm asking you to hold off, but I wanna make sure we get any other questions or concerns answered for the board
before I try to offer any guidance, because we do have some remedies, but we have to be careful that we don't exceed our authority under approving a plat. Technically, this was not a condition of plat approval. It was a condition of it getting to our agenda. That's the problem. So I want to be very careful how we structure that. But commissioners, does anybody else have any questions for staff or anyone else?
I want to second what Mr. Glidewell said. I mean, we've never used this before, apparently, and it's just kind of convenient that we didn't bring it up during that meeting.
Well, let me,
Mr. Shipman, I'll give you a couple of minutes. Come on.
Nobody asked Shipman to interrupt.
I just want
Donna's
to
not stopping him.
ask Mr.
He just interrupted. Nobody
This
cared.
was a plat approval.
Nobody else
We
gets to
approved
do
that
that.
plat.
Yes,
by
sir.
a 3-0
Connected.
vote.
Yes, sir.
So the fact that 2 commissioners weren't here doesn't really change the fact that 3 commissioners voted for it.
No, that plat is approved.
So is there any historical precedent for undoing?
Because,
Plat
so,
approval.
so
And
ultimately,
if so, why?
so I'm going to put it, I'm about to, Mr. Shipman, if you will, I'm going to put Mr. Schoen on the spot. Stephen, sorry, buddy, going to bring you up here. I'm going to put a few things on the record, because I'm going to be candid. Even if there were historical precedent, I'm not sure I would let you do it.
Clay's making the
That's the problem.
record.
Mr. Schoen, in terms of plat approvals,
So Clay
these would be
says, "I
fees that
won't
would be
let you
due
do
prior
it."
to the meeting.
He's
They are
in
not
charge.
fees that are required to be paid upon the approval of the plat, correct?
Historically, there is a memorandum at the plan department that requires fees to be paid. Memos to be created prior to taking it to the board. There have been exceptions. This is a relatively new rule internal to the department. It's not a codified requirement that these things occur before the board. Here's the
An
item.
internal rule.
Again, it was a memorandum that was released by the director that these things are taken care of prior to. There have been situations where that was waived because ultimately staff can hold on to the plat and not release it until those
Mac
fees
was
are paid
freestyling it.
for recording. I mean, so it is typically what we like to see, but it's not what happens every time.
So with regard to where we are, I want to address this for the board's benefit. I think I know this answer, so I may get surprised, I may
Well,
not.
what if we just have them pay the fees?
Well, we're going to get there. That's
Okay.
where I want to get there to make sure we can. At this point, after plat approval, what are the county's next required or available steps of approval
Listen
related
carefully.
to this project, Mr. Schoen?
We would ensure that all fees are collected and the memos created, and we would work with our records.
So I'm being even more granular.
Okay.
You got a DO issued, you've got a plat approved. What other approvals get issued by Walton County post-plat approval?
Building permit,
Okay, and a certificate of occupancy?
correct?
So board, my recommendation to you today in this scenario is that the board's prior approval of the Casa Magnolia subdivision plat included a staff report that indicated that the amount of, and let's hope all these other fees have been paid, Mr. Schoen, because I'm not referencing them, but I think we can all say all fees due.
Not been paid.
No, so not even the prop fair share?
Let's hope they've been paid.
So let's just make it clear that the special considerations under the section plat fees on page 3 of 8 of the staff report, page 6 of 59 of the board packet that day, including $307,950.94 for a traffic concurrency deficiency, $776, $272.76 for recreational plat fees, and a $500 911 address fee have to be paid prior to the BCC meeting, that the board would specifically today, rather than recall the plat, because again, I don't think we have the legal authority to do that, move forward with signing the plat, direct Mr. Curry, who was the chair at that meeting, as the vice chair, to execute the plat
Good.
with the express condition that this issue of the rec fee being either reduced or otherwise fully waived or be brought back to the board for an independent consideration prior to the issuances of any building permits or COs.
Well, I would
And that
like
would
to
be
say-
consistent with the Florida Impact Fee Act.
I would like to say that Mr. Curry hold off on signing the plat until the fees are paid.
I don't believe we have the legal right to withhold a plat
It
signature.
states on our document right here that they're not supposed to bring it to the board until it's paid.
I concur with that, but plat approvals are governed by Florida statute and there is nothing in Florida law that allows the
Listen real
board
quick.
to condition approval on something
When he
that's
was
not
reading
written
out
in an
those
ordinance.
fees,
Can we
They
make
had
sure
to
that
play
there's
a
no going
traffic
forward with any
concurrency
building or anything else
deficiency.
until
That's
those
what I'm
fees are
saying,
paid?
building
Why? And
permits,
this
before
goes-
any
this
building
is
permits
right
are
in the
issued
middle
or
of
any
Miramar.
certificates of
But
occupancy.
not
Why
waiving
is our
these
board
funds.
letting
No,
people
not at
buy
all. What I'm
out
saying is we have
knowing
to
there's no
agree,
more road to be built?
put it a record of the board
What
today.
good is that
We are gonna
money
go
when
ahead and
there's
sign
no
the
way to
plat,
add capacity to
but
the
that
roads?
no building
This is
permits
just
would be
stupid.
issued
This is
until
a
this
paid
matter is
bribe
fully resolved.
Because it can't go.
When you say fully
By this
resolved.
board, the board has to approve what is happening with the plat.
As they read off all
So-
those fees.
What we're talking about is the difference in 750,000.
700 and, why, how many?
$776,000.
And what was the other figure, 3,000?
307,950. So
No, what the plat fee would be under this hybrid thing.
Mr. Schoen.
I believe it was in the neighborhood of $5,500.
$5,500.
So $771,000.
I'm just gonna say, District 2, we don't have to worry about $700,000 plat.
But I would, and I understand that my advice here is something that
Yeah.
probably no
Tony's
one's
nervous.
satisfied with. But I will tell you, if we decline to approve a plat, after we've already issued approval and found it complied with state statute and the comprehensive plan, we've got a big problem. Two, we've had the rec fee, and Mr. Schoen and I have talked about this independent of this specific project. The rec fee is effectively an impact fee in the way you do it. Florida impact fee says you cannot require an impact fee to be paid prior to the time of building permit. I understand we've told them that.
Look,
We've
I
said
want you
this
to
for
realize
years.
what
I
just
understand
got
that's
me.
how it's
The
worked.
planning agreed
But
to take
as of the updated Florida Impact
$5,500
Fee Act and the
instead
series of amendments that have gone into effect over the last several years,
$767,000, and at that
we
time,
lack the ability
proportional
to
fair
deny
share was
plat
owed.
approval on an impact fee, but
And
we
they all
can
think
deny
that this is
building
funny.
permit
Look,
approval.
Donna's laughing,
Then why do we have it on our
Dan's
form?
laughing, Tony's
I
laughing.
can't find where that's in the
Brad's not
ordinance.
Sure what the hell's going on.
Says it right here.
And
Well, I know
Danny's
it says
like,
it in the form, but I'm
"Oh
telling you,
my
I can't find-
God. $5,500 we let go on a 3/4 of $1 million bill. I just want to point out this clearly that this didn't even make Ron Kelly's synopsis of the BCC meeting. Do you feel good about your tax money? Just your public affairs at the sheriff and the county are just here to blow sunshine up your ass? You bet your ass that's what they're there for.
Find that in our
My
ordinance.
advice, no one's
And I think Mr.
satisfied
Schoen said
with
the
it.
same thing. The ordinance does not actually require this to be paid prior to the meeting for the plat. We don't have the law that says that. This is just one of these, Commissioner.
How about an investigation that Mack and them committed
Encourage
a
you to reach over
crime?
and smack me. One of these unwritten policies that he keeps asking me, well, why is it unwritten?
Exactly.
I wish I knew.
Exactly.
I wish I knew, but what I can tell you is, Board, I would be remiss if I did not say, I think we are acting outside of our statutory authority to rescind the plat or withhold signature on the plat. I recognize that is not satisfying to anybody involved in this, but I am asking the board to please move forward with the plat, but expressly state and put an issuance to both planning and building that no building
That's not what
permits
she
be
asked you to play.
issued for this plat until the board has officially resolved this issue, be it the collection of fee, be it you choosing to agree to this hybrid model. I'm not hearing a lot of
Right hand,
support
meat
for that,
left.
mind you, but whatever, until you satisfy this issue for this $1 million+ of money that is, we thought we were
Unwritten
getting,
policy.
at that point in time, you still hold the ability not to let them get building
Well, we
permits.
can do that right now, can't we?
Yes, we can. That you
Dan
can
Sunday
do.
fails. Unwritten policies.
When it's seconded, right?
Yes.
After it's seconded. Okay, we have a motion to
I'll
have.
second it.
And we have a motion and a second. Okay, yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
That's a nice pose, Tony Anderson.
But while he's coming up here,
Rub your head.
so, Mr. Adkins.
Pick your nose, eat a booger. There you go.
The signature on that plat is a
Good job.
ministerial action, and so the vice chair is basically required, correct?
Correct. And the board's
$1
approval
million
of that
plus
plat was
the money
barely
that we
more than
thought we
ministerial
were
because they
getting.
complied with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan provisions
You weren't
for submitting
recognized.
us a plat.
I just break procedures.
That was entitled to government approval and recordation under Florida statute. That's the problem. This was not a condition of plat approval anywhere within our ordinances, and Mr. Schoen has confirmed that for you. That's why I asked him those questions. Had he said something different, I would have gladly said, hold it up, but I can't find it, and your expert by designation of the code has no record of it.
I just don't like how, in a court of law, you're supposed to have all the evidence so people can make the correct decision on a data given. We weren't given all that data. So that's my issue with this. I mean, if it was no big deal and it's a hybrid, whatever, it should have been mentioned. It should have been discussed and we should have heard it.
I agree with everything the board's saying, and I think this
And
was
Shipman's
absolutely
prepared for
outside the
this 'cause they
process
knew.
we should follow. What I don't want is one mistake or worse to be compounded by this board's action to result in litigation
Watch
that we
Stan.
are, I'm
Oh,
not gonna
shit.
say hopelessly unable to win,
I
but
loosen my tie.
probably fighting upstream.
I'm okay with him signing that as long as.
The building
Outside the process,
Yes.
we should
Well, I
follow.
would say, I agree with you, but, what is that, the saying caveat in.
Caveat emptor, buyer beware.
I mean,
Clay just
it's
gave it
our
up in 2 minutes.
responsibility to make sure we have the facts. And the one thing, you know, I've always prided myself is that I'm prepared for meetings. I know what, and in this case, I didn't, and it's my fault just as much.
Well,
no, there
your
was none of-
staff report said it was paid,
Well, there was
or at least
nothing in the.
implied it was
Well, that's
paid.
the problem.
But you failed, Dan.
Yeah, your staff report said, and is due prior
It
to the
was
Board
your
of County Commissioners
responsibility
meeting
and
for
you
the plat.
failed, Danny.
Based on that, I don't know how anybody sitting here at this dais could have ever assumed anything otherwise than it was paid. It wouldn't be before you otherwise.
I mean, I hate to
Danny's
say
known
it, but
staff was
are
jacked
we
up
supposed
forever, and
to
he
get into the
protected-
day-to-day and ask for checks every time we come in here? Hey, did they pay this? Hey, did they pay that? We entrust staff for that.
I agree with you. And
Can we hear from the applicant?
I'm sorry.
No.
Assume. Yep, Stan
It's
failed you.
embarrassing.
All right.
Okay,
He let that meeting
It's
go down.
unfortunate that Mr. Carpenter's not here because Mr. Carpenter was the one involved, although.
It's embarrassing, Danny? No, it's $1 million.
Long before we ever came in front of you, the issue that was delaying it is Mr. Carpenter didn't like the way the plat labeled things that were not part of the lots on the plat. The plat, we handed it out, the plat is the last tab in your little notebook. Mr. Carpenter kept insisting, because we labeled everything on this plat that's not an individual
Shipman's basically
lot
saying carpenter,
as
carpenter, carpenter.
POA owned, Property Owners Association. Because under the law, somebody has to own it. So if it's not going to be owned by an individual owner, for example, the beach, then the property owner association has to own it. Mr. Carpenter and I went round and round and round about that. And eventually, we agreed, and if you watch the meeting, that came up. I believe Mr. Anderson asked me about it,
Imagine that.
where I changed the plat to read in the beginning, all property in the plat not otherwise labeled belongs to the property association. That seemed to be the focus of the meeting. On that plat, we also had labeled the park at the front. The park at the front and this hybrid system came about, if you'll turn to tab 1, the planning lawyer and I discussed this. And I wrote her a letter.
Well, Brad
We
got
had
his
a meeting
papers.
where I discussed, there's a couple of things in play here. You first go to the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, and I referenced R-2.1.9. I probably should have also referenced R-2.1.10.
We're gonna
But both
skip through
of
some
them
of Shipman, because
provide
it's just a diatribe
that
of diarrhea coming out of
because
his
the
mouth.
county
and I
wants
wanna
to
hear
have
what
this
Clay has.
system of correct? So why don't you want me to explain why this hybrid
Because
applies?
the plat is already done.
Gary
We've
thinks he
already
runs this
been
county.
told that the plat has already been done.
And
It's
now
already
you
been
want to
approved.
undo it because it has a
No,
park
that's
in
not
it.
what we're saying, Mr. Shipman. That's not what we're saying.
No, I made clear
We're not
they're not able
undoing-
to undo
We're
the
not
plat.
undoing the plat.
Okay, well then, I don't understand why we're even discussing the fee.
We want the funds paid.
You want the funds for,
Our rec plat fees paid.
okay, so you want the park that's in the plat that you approved, and you want fees.
You didn't bring up the park
We
at
can
all.
certainly replat and remove the park and do the fees because that's what the board
I
expected.
think,
I mean, if he was
if
expecting
you'll
that.
allow me so that we don't end up in court where you denied us due
Don't
process.
threaten me.
So if you would allow me to speak, I'd be happy to explain it to you. When you adopt a comprehensive plan, you adopt provisions of the LDC on how to implement it. The sections that we're talking about, the comprehensive plan R2.1.9 and R2.1.10.
Clay's worried.
When they were adopted, you then
Tell him
later
Stan.
adopted section 5.03.05, which addresses not only greenway corridors, but it addresses recreational concurrency requirements.
Mr. Shipman, did you or did you not say the day before this meeting that it was going to be postponed till the following meeting?
I didn't say
Look at Danny
anything
and
about
them.
this.
They
Not
don't
to
know
me.
what to do.
Did you say it to anybody, staff?
No.
So where did Mr. Carpenter think that it was going to be postponed and told Mr. Sunday that it was going to be postponed?
Mr. Carpenter was trying to get us to give him the beach, and I told him we would not.
So you were in meetings with who that afternoon and the next morning, right before this meeting? Who
I
were
didn't
you
meet
in?
with anybody that afternoon or the next morning. I met with Mr. Carpenter and counsel for the planning department prior, I don't know.
Well,
exactly
they
when
was
it
stated in the
Listen to
meeting
that.
that you
We
all had
tricked you.
conversation the night
Watch.
before and the
Watch.
morning of. That's what
The
was
morning
stated.
of, we discussed removing the words POA owned off the actual map. That was the issue. It wasn't this. The issue was on the plat, Mr. Carpenter didn't like where we labeled property.
Shipman don't like this
That wasn't
answer.
an individual lot or a park. We put on it POA owned. And we had it every place. We had it on the drainage.
Here it comes.
We had it on the
But
beach.
that's not our issue here right now. What our issue right now is our plat fees.
Right, and that wasn't an issue
Your
discussed
staff.
with
That's
Mr.
because-
Carpenter immediately before the meeting either.
Nobody discussed it at the meeting with the board members either.
You didn't ask.
Mr. Shipman, the problem is the board's report that they had in their packet indicated that amount would be paid prior to the meeting. They had no
Well,
reason
they
to.
didn't get that from me.
No, but they did get it from staff, and that's what their concern is. If the
All right.
plat is approved, your client has a plat approved, he gets a signature on that plat, and then ultimately, like any other impact fee, we're going to have to deal with making sure
Well,
we have full money
and-
paid
and-
before building permits.
And our position is, which you voted on, which I went over with your staff, not the day before, not the morning of, long before we got here.
You didn't mention that piece of
Yeah,
property at that
surprise
meeting
that.
at
Tony
all.
made a motion to approve.
We didn't mention anything about the recreation in there.
Exactly, that's my point.
And that's because,
Look at Tony
Commissioner, when we
fidgeting.
got up here, Mr. Carpenter got up And all he talked about was not wanting POA label on the beach. And I responded if you listened to the meeting, you would know.
I did.
I got up and I responded. We changed it. We took POA off everything and we put it in the front of it. I even said, I think this is an issue, this is a change without any real meaning. Mr. Anderson asked me if I was satisfied with the way that Mr. Carpenter wanted it labeled, and I said
Amen.
yes. And then you made a motion to approve. And by the way, I've had other matters before here.
And he didn't
where you made
donate
motions to
5%.
approve and seconded it, voted on it without me saying anything else, because I'm certainly not going to object if you're going to do that. So that's how we got here. So now if you want to know how did I arrive
See,
at the method of
Gary, that's not
giving
gospel.
the park, it's because when you adopted the LDC, which you were required to do after the comprehensive plan, you had to have a method of complying with that comprehensive plan. It is never a choice
It's got a public
of the
park
county
in it, right?
commission whether to take the land or to take the money. That is the
Make 'em build
applicant's.
it.
It's not the choice of the applicant to decide whether or not he's going to pay the required fees.
He can dedicate 5% of the gross area, or he can pay 6% of the assessed value of the land.
And then when you,
That's the
It's
comp
not
plan.
and then
Why
when
does
you
Gary get to
go
stay up
right,
there?
to the
Nobody else
LDC that implemented the
He's done
section of the comprehensive plan, which you're required to do, that was in my letter to council.
We disagree that 5.0305 applies, and Mr. Schoen just agreed that this does not fall into the Greenway standards. That's the problem.
I disagree with you.
Well, that's
That's
fine,
fine,
Mr.
you
Shipman, but
disagree,
In
but
any event, you have now approved a plat.
we've already approved it. We're not
Right.
denying that.
So you've approved it based on what we presented, which included this park.
You yourself did not say one word about that park.
And neither did you.
I wasn't here.
Well,
You
neither did
were.
any
That's
of the
first
other
grand jury.
commissioners.
Listen.
Board, I would ask that as part of the motion, planning staff, along with the county attorney's office and administration, meet with the applicant to determine any potential resolutions for the payment of these fees.
Well, why
and
isn't Matt?
to have this back to the board at its next regularly scheduled board meeting. I do know that is a North Walton board meeting, but I want to bring that back as quickly as possible, and I want to read one line to the board on this issue. Well, I'm going to read two, I'm going to read 2 lines. Again, it appears no action was ever taken to collect this fee. For reference, this fee is a rec plat fee. We find the failure to collect almost $800,000 in recreation fees to be egregious and unacceptable. For those of you who are not familiar with what I just quoted, that is a grand jury finding against this county. So seeing that we have not collected another almost $800,000, I don't want this board sitting in front of a grand jury trying to explain why. And the last time that happened, by the way, we ended up with a planning director who was no longer the county planning director, criminally charged. But the board's the one who had the grand jury called against it. So right now, we're not going to issue building permits until we have sorted this issue out. They get their plat approved, give us a chance to bring this back to you in give or take 2 weeks.
Can I
Didn't
ask?
we have a motion already?
Yes.
There's a
But
minimum
would you make
amount.
that part of your motion, sir?
That is my motion.
Would you make it part of your motion? I got a head nod,
Yes,
Madam
sir.
Clerk.
But let me ask you this. Whose choice is it to pick either fee or land?
So it is up to the developer so the way it is worded, R 2.19 of the comprehensive plan, which is what does govern this, requires the developer to dedicate a minimum of 5% of the gross area.
The commission
Now,
is
I do agree with
accountable.
Commissioner Johns. I think this is slightly under it, but nonetheless, that's where it is. It says, alternatively, the developer of the development shall pay cash in the amount of 6%. So in other words, if you're not making the dedication of land,
You
you
should
got to
be.
pay the 6%. I find no basis for where the hybrid scenario comes from. And if it was going to be done, I think the only way it could be done is by board approval. And that is my biggest concern here, is that no matter what, this
Gary,
board
this
did
don't
not
make a lick of
approve
sense.
what happened. I understand the developer thought one thing, and perhaps our staff led him to believe every single bit of this would be how it was done.
But I'm gonna be very candid, it was on staff to tell you, and since staff didn't tell you, and you're the ones who are gonna be accountable, and if we get audited, and you've gotta go find a non-ad valorem general fund basis to repay $770,000 into an impact fee bearing account for her district, that's
Wasn't that what the
where
grand
we
jury
may
said
be,
in
but we may also be under
2017,
grand jury
Clay?
again. Last time we didn't collect
Yeah.
800,000, that's what happened.
So if it's not up to the county, why in the world would we want to have?
Hey, Shipman, who was involved in that first
That
one?
don't make a lick of sense.
None.
And,
This is a mess.
I mean, really, we're
Bougie
gonna have to
day.
take care of this thing in perpetuity, and it's not big enough to put 2 parking places and a bathroom on. I mean, this is,
Tony feels the heat
this
now.
is not in the county's best interest. We would be better off not having this ordinance than to have this happen.
And I will represent to you that
Listen
Mr.
up,
Shawn and I
Andrew.
have discussed the severe need to update recreational
attorney.
impact fees. Believe he'll be coming forward with a request for some study work in the very near future to
You reckon?
make sure we modernize this. And I do believe what you're discussing is going to be part of the modernization process if I know any of the consulting companies that do
You knew
impact
Mac
fee
was a jerk.
determinations
I don't see where
whatsoever.
we need this park whatsoever, so this is a mess.
Madam Chair, Mr. Shipman, you said the board should ask you, and perhaps we should have. But I'm the senior member of this board. I've been in this office since late 16. I've never had this happen. I didn't know to ask
But we've
that
begged you to ask
you,
questions.
because we've never done this. I was asking questions to Mr. Carpenter about beach use. And this should have been brought up
Shipman's
by
standing down
y'all or
now.
staff. And I'm not
That's his ally.
blaming you, Stephen. I know you had nothing to do with it. But we,
Commissioner,
and let me finish, please. And this is,
Never even heard of it,
this
Danny
is the
says.
fault of the three of us that were here.
I've already took my
And
medicine.
but none of us, and I don't think it would have mattered if Commissioner Johns would have been here or Commissioner Drake. None of us have ever had to think about asking, oh, wait, is this part of the, is
Bottom
this a
line, that's
hybrid?
what
or is
it
this part-"
says. What do you
Because
mean
we've
convenient?
never done
That's
it
what the law
in the
says. I'm gonna
8 and a
stop
half
this
years I've
diatribe,
been in office.
But we've got to the
So,
key points, because I don't want this show
I mean-
to be too long. But we had a grand jury over this same situation, some of the same people involved. And here it is again for the citizens. It's time for an investigation into Sandestin, and it's time key points, because I don't want this show to be too long. But we had a grand jury over this same situation, some of the same people involved. And here it is again. Embarrassing. It's not even part of the news. Your county is wasting millions of dollars, and this is just one. This is just one. What happens in this meeting is just somebody has got to do a full audit. If we found this out by accident, and guess what? Shipman showed up with packages, so he'd been tipped off that they had figured it out. He had the people there. He had Melissa Ward there handing out stuff. He didn't get surprised by this. He was just mad it couldn't get squashed before it got here. Look up, Stan's over there again, whining his butt and scratching his watch, because he is absolutely responsible for the culture of it's okay to make up freestyle rules with the taxpayers' laws and money, and he's got to go. And if Tony Anderson says he felt lied to, what the hell does that say? You can't make this shit up, but I'm going to leave you with this picture. But watch, if they paid the fees voluntarily in less than 2 weeks when Shipman says they didn't have to, and that's what agreed to, then they want to cover up this crime so they don't uncover more. It's time for a grand jury for the citizens. It's time for an investigation into Sandestin, and it's time, and what Mac hasn't done there. It's funny, they sit there and say that if there's an ordinance, now we have to follow it no matter what, whether we like it or not. Well, how come that doesn't apply in that case? Donna, you need to get it in gear. They're walking over you like you're like the bridge over the River Kwai. about to be exploded. Anyway, you can't make this shit up on the Alan Osborne Show. You just can't. Until next time, who's responsible for this? I'm going to tell you what, if there's not an investigation over this, and we're worried about Chaz's naked emails with some girl that's married in the clerk of court, does that just, well, let's just go back to all the events of passing off the naked assistant and all that crap. I mean, come on, people. We deserve better. It's time to flush the toilet. Till next time, I'm Alan Osborne, and you can't make this shit up, but you can unelect it, and you can investigate it, and some of it you could put in prison. Till next time, y'all keep them straight here.